Welcome to the podcast, Let the Prophet Speak. Today we are going to study the book of Esther, Megillat Esther, chapter 6. That's Parak Vav. In the last chapter, we learned of the two hints that Esther dropped to the king at her first party. Two hints that would make the king start to wonder and start to be somewhat suspicious of Haman. Those two hints were, number one, she invited the king to a party, and the first party that they had, she said, "I want to invite you, and I'm making it in honor of the king, and I'll invite Haman as well." The second party, she said to the king, in response to his question, "What is it, Esther, that you want?" She said, "I want to invite you, and I'll make you and Haman again to a party, this time a party that I'm making in honor of both you and Haman." Now, this is of course going to plant a seed of suspicion in the heart and the mind of the king. In addition, she never answered his question yet exactly what her request really is. She just said that tomorrow I will tell you at the party what my request really is. So she left the king wondering, left him suspicious. Number one, why is she making a party in honor of both me and Haman this time? What's going on with this Haman? And the second thing is, left him curious as to exactly what is the request that she's going to make. It is therefore no surprise when we start chapter 6, when the king went to bed that night, on that night, Nodeda Shinat HaMelech, the sleep of the king evaded him. In other words, he had a difficult time sleeping. He had a case of severe insomnia that night. Vayomer, and he said, and I would propose, and I don't think it's a stretch to say that it's obvious that his concern was he's starting to be worried that maybe Haman isn't such um, a loyal servant at all, and maybe he has some kind of devious plan. So the king asks, "Laviet Sefer HaZichronot, bring to me the book of the records, Divrei Hayamim, which records the annals, the history, by you Nikraim Lifnei HaMelech, and have them read it before the king." The king now wants to, let me hear the stories, what happened day to day. I want to go over past events, looking for hints as to what's going on here. What exactly is this that's up Esther's sleeve? What is Haman really up to? Vayimatzei Katav, and as he was reading it through, he saw that it was written, Asher Higid Mordechai, or the record of the story that Mordechai had told and had informed al Bigtana v'Seresh regarding Bigtana and Seresh, Shnei Sarisei HaMelech, the two eunuchs of the king, Mishomrei Asaf, who were guardians of the gateway, Asher Bikshu L'Shloach, that they had plotted to assassinate Bamelech Achashverosh, the king Achashverosh. Vayomer HaMelech, and the king said, "Man asa yikar ugedulo leMordechai al zeh." Suddenly, the king, who was always concerned with who's truly loyal to him or not, says, "What did we do to reward him? What did we do to honor him and advance his greatness in my court to Mordechai regarding this issue?" Vayomeru, and Na'arei HaMelech Misharsav, and his servants said to him, "Lo nasa imo davar," we did not do to him anything. So now the king is even more suspicious. Here I have Mordechai, who has clearly demonstrated his loyalty to me, and I have done nothing to raise him up. Instead, as we learned in the beginning of chapter 3, that immediately after Mordechai informed on Bigtan and Seresh, the king raised Haman, not Mordechai. So now the king is even more concerned. So Vayomer HaMelech, and the king said, Mi bechotzer, who is in the courtyard? Now, again, the Megillah leaves a lot out over here. What do you mean, who is in the courtyard? You would imagine that it would say, the king heard someone in the courtyard, or someone walked into the courtyard and the king asked who it is. But the king rather said, who's out there? As if he was searching for who are the people that are hanging out here, who are the loyal ones to me. So Haman ba, and it just so happened that Haman was at the time coming lachatzar beit hamelach hachitzona, to the outer courtyard of the king. And the purpose of Haman's coming, we learned in the last chapter, was, on the advice of his wife Zeresh and the advice of all of his friends, to ask the king permission to hang Mordechai and execute him that day, so that Haman could enjoy the party without worrying about his competition. So Haman was at this time when the king was asking who is in the chutzner. It seems like the king is just asking in general, who are the people that are out there? I need to figure this out. What's going on? And so Haman, and it just so happened that when he asked that question, the person that was out there was Haman, who was coming to ask the king, Lemor lamelech litlotet Mordechai ala eitz asher heichemo, to hang Mordechai on the wooden stake, a wooden post that he had prepared for him. So Bayomru Narei Hamelech Elov. So the servants of the king said to him, Ine Haman omeid bechatzer. Who is out there? It is Haman who is out there. Haman is the one who is there. Bayomer Hamelech Yavo. So the king said, bring him in. Bring him in. I want to talk to him. So Vayavo Haman. And so Haman walked into the king's room, the throne room. Vayomer lo Hamelech, and the king said to him, Ma la'asot ba'ish. What should we do for a man? Asher Hamelech hafetz bikaro, that the king wants to honor him. So Vayomer Haman belibo. Here the Megillah tells us Haman is saying in his heart, L'miach botz Hamelech la'asot yikar yoter mimeni. Surely the king is asking this because he wants to give me honor. Because who else could he ever want to honor any more than I? Now, this important what Haman is saying in his heart right now, what Haman is thinking to himself. Because if Haman knew that the king wanted to honor someone else, he would have said, okay, give him a prize, give him a house, I don't know, give him a bunch of money, make a dinner in his honor. But Haman, because he's thinking about himself, is going to ask for something that Haman only wants for himself and never wants for anyone else. And that is because Haman, as we know, has a desire to usurp the kingdom. He wants to be the king. And his response, which we're about to read, is the most glaring proof that this is Haman's desire. Vayomer Haman al Hamelech. So Haman said to the king, Isha sher Hamelech chafetz bikaro. So for a man to whom the king wants to give honor, this is what you should do. Verse 8, Yaviu levush malchut. They should bring the kingly robes, asher lavash bo Hamelech, the actual robes which the king himself wears. V'sus asher rochav alav Hamelech, and the horse upon which the king himself rides. Asher nitan keter malchut b'roso. And the that it sounds, based on the wording, it seems like, and that same horse upon which they put the royal crown. In other words, there was a royal crown that was meant for the king's horse to show that this is the one that the king is riding. The Vinason halavush, and they should put the cloaks, the royal cloaks, viasus, and the special horse, al yad ish misareha melech apartimim, from one of the high officers of the king, should lead this horse. Bilbishu et ish, they should dress this man up. Asher melech habitz bikaro, the one of the king wants to honor, dress him up in the king's robes, v'kivu alasus, and ride him on the king's horse who is wearing the special markings of the king's horse, Berchova, in the streets of the city, Vikaru lefanav, and they should call out before this man, Kacha ye'aseh isha she'hamelech hafetz bikaro. So should be done for the man whom the king desires that he be honored. So now this is the true test of Haman's loyalty. Vayomer Hamelech Haman. So the king said to Haman, Mahar, good, I love that idea. Let's see just that you're one of my officers, and let's just see how loyal you really are. Mayer, kachet halavush, take the cloak, vietasos, and the horse, kasher dibarta, just as you described. Ba'asechen, and I want you to do that, Mordechai HaYehudi, for that Jewish guy, Mordechai HaYoshev B'shar HaMelech, the one who sits in the king. Al tapel davar mikol asher dibarta. Don't omit or leave out anything from all of the things that you just described. So one of the partimim, one of the great officers of the king, is going to be you, Haman, and you will therefore have to lead Mordechai around. And that's why I will see if you are truly as loyal as you claim to be. Vayikach Haman et halavush v'etasus. So Haman took the king's clothing and the king's orders by Albeshet Mordechai, and he dressed up Mordechai by Yarkiveu Berchovayir, and he rode him through the city. By Yikra Lefanav, and he called before him, Kocha Yaseh Ish, so shall be done for the man Asher Hamelech Hafetz Bikaro, that the king desires his honor. This episode is crucial to understanding how the king is trying to test Haman. The king, as of yet, is still thinking that Haman might just be a very loyal servant, and if he is, he will carry this out. And Haman did. He carried it out because, of course, he had no choice. Vayashov Mordechai al Shar HaMelech, and then he brought Mordechai back to the king's courtyard after riding him around the city and giving him this honor. And Haman now knows he obviously cannot hang Mordechai. And not only that, but Mordechai's position is advancing in the eyes of the king. So Haman now goes to his home, like with his in mourning and his head buried in shame. So now Haman realizes that his foe for the honor of the king, his foe for being the favored one of the king, is rising, and Haman's star is falling. By Yisaper Haman, and Haman said Lazeresh Ishto L'chol Havav, to Zeresh his wife and to all of his friends, Iskol Asher Karohu, everything that happened to him. By Yomer Lo Chachamav, and his wise friends Zeresh Ishto and his wife said to him as follows: Imizera HaYehudim, if he is one of those Jewish people, if he is of Jewish stock, Mordechai, this Mordechai person, Asher hachilota in polifanav, that you have now begun to fall before him, lo tuchalo, you will not beat him. Kina folti polifanav, you will fall before him. Remember Mordechai's whole claim, when Mordechai explained why he wasn't bowing to Haman, he said, because I am a Yehudi, I am a Jew. And what was it? What was the characteristic that Mordechai was emphasizing? Is that as a Jew, I know that I need to be loyal to the king. I need to remain loyal. I need to remain faithful. I need to remain truthful. And his friends wisely understood and knew that if the king now, if Mordechai is one of the Jewish people and he is being loyal to the king, and that is now being recognized, you can't compare to him because you're not loyal and you're nothing like him and you can't be like him. And he is employing honesty and integrity. Once honesty and integrity is being looked upon by something important by the king instead of bribery and selfishness, you're going to be lost. Odam medabir mimo. Haman didn't even have a chance to try to plot some new plan, because while he was talking with his advisors, the king's eunuchs came, and they had to rush to bring Haman el Hamishtet to the party, Asher Asta Esther, that Esther had made. It's time to go. It's time to go to the Esther's party. Haman had no chance to recover from this, had no chance to try to devise some other plan. And this concludes chapter 6, as we start to see the star of Mordechai beginning to rise and the star of Haman beginning to fall. And we start to see that Mordechai's original plan of faithfulness and integrity and loyalty is starting to actually work, as opposed to Haman's plan is starting to fall apart. Thank you so much for studying chapter 6 together. Looking forward to studying chapter 7 and the rest of the book of Esther together.